Yeah, opening your eyes and really coming into what I hope feels for all beings here, a kind of a refuge. And of course, coming to teach today, really wondering what I was going to prepare and say, what can be said, right? And so I do have some things that I hope I'd love to offer in more traditional Buddhist practice, but then I wanted to offer some really practical, trauma sensitive ways of regulating ourselves at this time. So I'll move into that. And then I would like to really open it up to the community here for some sharing and questions as support. And we'll set some very simple guidelines for the questions around that. Does that feel good, everybody, so that we can really meet everyone where they are, especially everyone online as well? This is why we practice. It's for these kinds of periods that, as we know, inevitably will come in some way for all of us. And this is a collective experience for sure. So I'll just say a few words, and I think what I'd like to do is just frame a little bit of these conditions as perhaps opportunities. And we'll see if any of you have really been tapping into this at all, noticing any of this for yourself, especially if you've been practicing for a while. Your practice does show up, hopefully, for you in these kinds of conditions. That there are two wings of our practice that we're constantly cultivating, and that is that of wisdom and of compassion, these two wings. This is how the practice really starts to fly and support us and provide benefit. So I'll just say, in terms of the wisdom piece, and this month, the theme that we were going to be cultivating all this month was wise view, the Eightfold Path. Maybe many of you know that, familiar with that. And I'll just touch on that so briefly because it might be relevant, and that part of the view that it's the forerunner of the whole Eightfold Path. It's the forerunner, the view kind of allows the path to open. And the wise view that we're talking about here, and maybe some of you have noticed this, it is a profound insight, a radical understanding of the truth of impermanence, and that nothing is relatively stable or lasting in external conditions. So I'm just wondering if that resonates at this time. How many of you have had this kind of clarity right now? Just a show of hands. Maybe not, Has the clarity been like, wow, there is nothing truly that we can hold on to in any lasting way? And of course we cling. This is, and the Four Noble Truths is often used as a kind of a gateway into this radical seeing of the truth. And remember, this practice is being with things as they really truly are. It's being with reality. Often we're not in alignment with that. We want to hold on, we cling. And the Four Noble Truths, of course, is that, there is this suffering. That's another real deep, profound kind of insight into wise view. This is not set up for us to be all happy all the time. And then of course, when we wake up to this, that wow, external conditions really are not going to line up ever. Sometimes they kind of do. Did they ever? Really? Really? Do they ever? Perfectly? Sometimes. Right. So we start to wake up this radical, and then we begin to explore the root of this. And it is this clinging to conditions. We want things to be otherwise, don't we? Don't we? We don't want it to be this way. And then we start to let go. And I'm wondering, with this clear seeing of impermanence, have any of you had moments of really kind of releasing? Has anyone had that? Just curious if that's been part of your experience. And so we are allowing ourselves to wake up to the truth. And often these kinds of things, as painful and as uh, challenging as they can be opportunities from a practice or Buddhist perspective. I live, and I'll just share really briefly, I live in Nichols Canyon in the Hollywood Hills. And so, of course, many of you know with the Sunset Fire, we had about 10 minutes in order to evacuate. And so we did so. And I do want to say, I do want to acknowledge that I come from a place of privilege, that we were able to load our cars up, and our son came with his truck, and we quickly just, but it was very interesting. And I'll share this with you. Walking around the house and realizing of like what I was going to take. Has anyone, I don't know if anyone else evacuated. Yeah. Um, uh, I really didn't want too much. I was really surprised to see that there was a kind of clarity and that it meant it didn't, I couldn't, it wasn't something to cling to. It was quite, I was very, very calm because it was very liberating. Now, I don't want my house to burn down, but there was this deep kind of liberating, oh. And I found myself getting very simple things. Chapstick. But a lot of the things that I really, it was very clarifying. And got our dog, of course, and I'll never forget as we drove down and calmly, we all calmly drove away. And I really, these conditions, we saw what's been happening, how quickly the fires, we were lucky that the winds weren't so bad. And, we were very, very fortunate that they were able to drop water from the sky at that point. But driving down, I tell you, this is nothing I've ever experienced in my lifetime. Driving along Sunset Boulevard, it was very congested because everybody was evacuating. And to my left, as I was driving east, by that point, the whole hillside was ablaze, almost down right to like just the whole thing. And I'm driving with my little dog in my lap and looking over and just, wow, that's right. There was such a clarity, really deep seeing. And I think with these, with wisdom, and maybe you all can, it's not a conceptual thing. It's a deep, oh, aha, right. Um, and then I was so lucky to be with my family. We have young adult children. We all kind of huddle together. And I was lucky to have all that I loved that was there, and that seemed the most important. So do you all recognize kind of what I'm pointing to, this waking up? And I would say that when in the wisdom piece from a Buddhist perspective, that wise view, we are seeing the truth in kind of a radical way. And I do think that this is kind of that. Um, And, the three marks of existence, I like to frame it this way because I try as much as I can in my practice to always see the truth, to always be open to these truths of, the unsatisfactory nature of life, that it never lines up. There's suffering inherent in the human condition because who we all have things that happen to our body. Anyone here going to live forever? No, that's the truth, right? That's the truth. Uh, Nothing lasts. Can't hold on. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And there's this also piece of anatta, this non-self, but I would say perhaps the waking up to it being so impersonal, just happening everywhere. Is there a community here that hasn't been evacuated yet? I guess there's a few, but just the randomness of it. You really can't blame yourself for this. It's not personal. So these 3 marks, right? We're opening to that. And what has been staying with me too, as I drove away from the house, just with the burning hillside, what was really, and do any of you know these, the 5 remembrances, the Buddhist 5 remember, does anyone practice with this? It is a beautiful returning to wise view that we can't hang on to anything, that nothing lasts, that it could burn in a minute. And what I love and what's been staying with me and what's been kind of a mantra as I drove along Sunset Boulevard, just in the traffic, what became so clear, and this is the last remembrance, my actions are my only true belongings. Has anyone heard this? And this is a very beautiful understanding. Think about it. If our actions are our only true belongings in this life, it's all about how we are going to be with it, how we are going to show up, how we are going to respond. And that's all that matters. I cannot escape the consequences of my actions. My actions are the ground on which I stand. So that has been for me a real deep, profound knowing. I also wanted to say a little bit about compassion. As we say, we're waking up to wisdom and compassion. Now, the truth is hard to be with, isn't it? The truth, really seeing it. Wow. It's not easy. So, of course, we need this responsive love that comes and shows up. Has anyone felt just in your heart opening and wanting to help everybody? Have you noticed this love, this responsive heart quality? Of course, the heart is breaking, but it's breaking open, right? With responsiveness and love. And I wanted to say, just as a refinement, I've done this before, but it's good to have this nuance about compassion, in that there is a difference between empathy and compassion. Does anyone know what I'm talking about here? And often we can get so overwhelmed, if, of course, there's an empathic response in times of suffering of others and our own, and it's where we put ourselves in each other's shoes and we really feel it like it's our own suffering. Do you guys know what I mean by that? But this is a downward spiral. Do you know what I mean? It's almost like we're all just drowning and suffering together. So empathy is not so resilient. And they've shown in research that when people are in empathy response, the negative regions of the body, of the brain, light up. So it is a downward spiral. It's not sustainable. And it makes us sick and overwhelmed. So is anyone noticing that in their body, in their being, the empathy? So compassion is different. Compassion is that empathic resonating, but it is this factor of love that shows up. So it allows us to breathe underwater. And I wanted to offer this, Venerable Analayo, Bhikkhu Analayo. He is a Buddhist monk in our Theravadan tradition, an early Buddhist scholar. And I love that he makes this distinction. And I'll just read it to you so that we can really be clear about what compassion practice is. It is empathy plus love. It is a love practice. It's a practice of, may you be free of suffering. So I'll just read just a few from him so that we can really be in the right alignment when we practice compassion, self-compassion, and compassion at this time, because it's very much needed. And it's the fuel out of which we can know our correct response, that we can show up for each other at this time. Compassion is concerned with the other being or beings being free from affliction. That is the focus of the practice, that the beings be free of suffering. The wish for them to be free from suffering is important, since mentally dwelling on the actual suffering would be meditation on dukkha. Does this make sense, everyone? Do you feel the difference? We don't want to wallow in the suffering. We want to let the heart rise out and up with love. The cultivation of compassion itself, however, finds its expression in the wish for the others to be free from suffering, the wish that everyone in LA right now find what they need, that we all come and show up for each other. In this way, the mind takes the vision of freedom from affliction as its object. So do you feel that? The freedom. Such an object can generate a positive, at times even joyful state of mind, instead of resulting in sadness. It is undertaken with a positive and joyful state of mind heart. So does this feel more resilient, more appropriate to given what we're going through? And this correlates with research. It's so interesting. The Buddha really was clear. When people are in states of compassion in relationship to suffering, and remember, compassion is the refuge for the heart in response, in relationship to any kind of suffering. It is the refuge. It is a refuge. And this is what they found, is that the states of the brain, when people are in compassion modes, it's the positive regions of the mind and the brain that light up. So it really verifies that it can be a heartbreakingly but beautiful, uplifting experience. And we all need this right now. Yeah. So I wanted to just say a few words now about trauma and trauma-sensitive mindfulness. It's something I've really studied a lot and find it to be so appropriate. And so I just wanted to say a few words about that, if that's okay, in order to support your practice. And then what I'd love to do is kind of open it up to the group. And see what feels best. And I even thought perhaps with before we end, if we can maybe share ways that we can respond at this time that any of you have found that have been helpful. I think we can all come together in a collective, compassionate response and share resources and information so that we can all quiet our hearts, bodies, and minds through our practice, and then be of service, right? So I'll just say a little bit about trauma-sensitive mindfulness. So, and as we know, trauma, it's very subjective. It's different for everyone. You'll see that in same situations, some people are more resilient than others. You'll see that it's really a subjective thing. But what it does is that trauma really lands in the nervous system and it dysregulates our nervous system. And how many of you have heard what is called the zone of tolerance? Has anyone heard this from a trauma perspective? So the nervous system, and I'll just say this, very, very simple, just as a framing for your own experience as we move through this very difficult time, is that the zone of tolerance from a nervous system perspective is kind of that place where we feel regulated, where we can kind of think clearly, where we're not overly anxious or shut down. Do you guys all know what I mean by that? And you can even, as I'm saying this, you can even touch in for yourself where you are with that. Now, what can happen with trauma, obviously, because trauma tends to be really activated in situations where we feel powerless and unsafe, right? Where we lose our agency in any way. So what can happen is the nervous system, and many of you probably know this, can really easily and quickly move into what's called fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And it gets really kicked out of the zone of tolerance. It can get kicked into what is called hyperarousal. That's where the fight and flight response goes, where you feel like you want to fight or flee, but you don't quite know what to do. So all this energy, anxiety, right? Anybody have noticed that? So that's hyperarousal, and it kicks us out of that zone of tolerance. We want to recognize this in our mindfulness practice. Oh my God, I'm kicked out of my window. Okay, I've been really noticing this whole time. When I get kicked out of my window, I take responsibility and I regulate my own reactivity through my practice. Or it can be kicked out into freeze. How many of you feel very shut down and numb? This is hypoarousal. Has anyone found that to be your experience? So we notice this, and then there's kind of mirrored, just to open it up to the diversity of experience. There's a lot of different ways that this is experienced. And here's what I want to say about how to regulate. The nervous system is almost like this very innocent. I like to think of my own nervous system because it's so innocent and so automatic that it's almost like a young child. Does anyone feel the innocence of that and the fragility and the vulnerability of that? And that ways to regulate the nervous system are all that you would do to calm and to soothe and to respond to a young child or an innocent animal. Have any of you seen the videos of the firefighters with the animals? How gentle they are and what they need. And it's almost that kind of thing. So I'll say that ways to regulate the nervous system, as I started, is through gestures. You can put your hand anywhere on your body. And how does that feel? You guys can try that on, all of you online as well. And there's something about that, and it can be in any way that feels, there's something about this that just feels really good. And this is, of course, hoping that you're in a situation, all systems, all conditions be normative, that you can kind of regulate yourself, kind of doing this. And so gestures are very good. Also movement, gentle rocking, gentle walking. You can hold yourself and rock, and everybody just try this on for a moment. You might kind of go, oh, this is silly. But then your nervous system will go, no, this is good. Yeah. Do you feel how nice that is? I've been rocking all the time. The other thing that can really help is audible sounds. Ah, even humming. You guys hum with me. Everyone online. This is what regulates whole communities. Humming, singing, dancing, moving. Am I right, everyone? You can really, how's that feeling? This is how we heal each other and our own. I hope the online people can feel it too. Do you feel it? Does it help you a little, everyone? So the triple thing is gesture, movement, sound. And even just going out into like outside and letting the sun, the sky is clear now miraculously. Isn't it wild? I drove here. I didn't see any smoke. It's just insane. I don't know what to say. So does everyone feel that this can be a nice way to hold your nervous system? And it's really nice to really relate to it like a little inner child that's just needing a lot of care and tenderness. The other things I'll just briefly say from a, trauma perspective is that when you practice, if it's okay, you can really what's called orienting. You can really keep your eyes open. It's good to keep your eyes open. Often when we close our eyes, we start to spin, right? And get a little flooded with fears and worries and images that we may have seen. We're flooded with a lot of images, right? So eyes open, and it's good to find a very neutral object to place your eyes on, such as, I don't know, it can be so simple, your own hands, just looking down and just orienting into some object that is calming and centering in your present moment experience. The present moment is the only really place where you can regulate your nervous system in the way that I'm talking. It all builds on mindfulness and a somatic connection into the present moment. So using your senses, orienting is opening to senses by really finding objects to let your eyes rest on, and just let that be your focus for a while, something pleasant, relatively stable, and supportive for whatever reason that may be. You can also just get a cup of hot tea and sip that. Does anyone have pets? Who has pets? You can let your pet just rest in your lap, and that's a really lovely, lovely orienting and resourcing practice. So let your senses really bring you into more balance through orienting. Resourcing is these heart qualities of compassion, of kindness, equanimity, and also sympathetic joy. How many of you had friends whose houses are okay and, you're amazed that they're okay? That joy that you can feel for other people. We should bring that in as well. That's really good. So the resourcing of good heart practices, and also resourcing into ancestors, benevolent beings, Kuan Yin, beautiful imagery, supportive imagery. This is deep resourcing into these qualities. Does everyone feel that? Dropping down into that. And grounding. It's very important to stay close to the earth. Just sometimes, just like putting your hand here, you can all do that if you want. Just feeling the earth's presence, It's very helpful. I know some of you in chairs, just put your feet on the ground, feel your feet there. So stay grounded, oriented, and resourced. And then all this yummy stuff too, humming, music, any music. Anybody listening to music or sound that's been helpful to you to regulate your nervous system? Okay. So want to open it up and just, I know we've all been going through a lot, and I will say this with trauma, and probably many of you know this, we don't want to get too caught up in the content of the story. Do you know what I mean by that? It's more, let's focus on practice, your direct experience, what you felt has been helpful at this time, what you're noticing right now, any questions that you have. And this just provides a beautiful space where we can all help each other right now. And if you feel regulated, if you feel available and resourced and compassionate, I invite you to go out and support everybody right now as part of your practice. So, because compassion is an action. It's a response. And remember, with compassion practice, sometimes we have to start with ourselves to regulate, and then we can be available. Does that make sense, everybody? When I'm dysregulated, I got to take responsibility for that first, and then I can be available. So opening it up both online and here, any sharing, anything you'd love to share about? Yes, Maureen, one of our beloved teachers. Thank you. Beautiful that you're here.
Thank you, everyone. I knew my nervous system needed to be in a group today.
Yeah.
So thank you. Thank you, Lisa, for holding us so generously and skillfully. I wrote a poem this week. I'm just going to share.
Beautiful.
I hope it's okay.
Yeah, beautiful.
It's called Inheritance. But I haven't been writing. This small voice chirps up in regular intervals, like a fire alarm with failing batteries, as the deadline of the writing workshop closes in. In truth, I have been a contributing writer to a small novel these last 3 days, in the multiple streams of email and text threads as we type out our care and concern. a novel with a heavy dose of tragedy, dystopian in scope, utterly real in impact. Paragraphs relaying devastation, the newly homeless refugees from the fires sharing their stunning losses. Some in a matter-of-fact state of shock. Some with astonishing clarity and composure, perhaps reflecting a shock response that moved through quickly, or one on hold is doing the needful, demands full attention. And everywhere, messages of love, offers of refuge, material help, emotional accompaniment. We humans know what to do when the elements rattle the world. We know how to respond to wildfires and floods, catastrophic storms, and the violent shaking of the earth. We know how to care. Love is built into the structure of our DNA. This longing to connect is an inheritance we sometimes neglect to claim. In our pride and self-importance, we turn away from the most precious gift of our ancestors, that capacity to align with the onward flow of life-affirming energy present since the brilliant explosion of the Big Bang. It's in our cells, in the body, that always inclines to close the cut, rush blood to the site of impact, mend the bone. Our psyche is wired to connect, to heal, to grow. I recognized in some of my co-authors to this story some long ago grudges melted. The heat of the flames purifying the heart as their unguarded voices call out, "Are you safe?" No longer resisting the deeply felt impulse underneath our defenses that asks, "How can I help?" The story included a photo of a home, the vibrancy of someone's material life reduced to gray rubble and blackened wood, yet something remained. Out of the ashes rose a serene and upright stone Buddha, quietly sitting among the withered remains and twisted metal, an outer emblem of that inner stillness which cannot be burned, consumed, or destroyed. This, too, is our birthright.
Thank you. Thank you. Beautiful. I'm sure this is going to be a time of an outpouring of a lot of creativity, right? Yeah. Anyone else? Thank you, Maureen. Beautiful. Okay.
Yeah, I had shared this with Lisa because I heard her share before on this, and I'm glad that I was able to hear it again when she mentioned about the difference between empathy and compassion, and this phrase like a meditation on dukkha. Really, it kind of lands with me, and it the, what she said just helped me recognize that when I am in a state of empathizing, I can have this desire to fix and feel like I need to fix because I'm feeling the pain too. And especially, you know, if I'm there with someone and it's like I'm feeling their pain, then I feel like dysregulated. So I have to fix the situation so that I can be regulated again. And you know, I thought that my entire life, you know, I had no idea this difference between empathy and compassion. So I thought that that experience and maybe trying to fix was the compassionate response. Um, but being able to now understand, okay, compassion is from a place of being able to be regulated, being able to respond with love and kind of let what's happening actually happen. Yeah, it's really profound. Um, and so I just appreciate that you brought that up, and it really helps me reorient um, to what's going on now. And of course, that extends out to many other situations in life, but it really helps me reorient. And it's very helpful in a time like this. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Does everyone relate to what she's saying? That fixing, which is more reactive, right? And it just takes us, you even did that. It takes us down. You kind of went like
Yeah.
that. And that it feels different. Compassion is a feeling of being resourced and regulated. And then you can just show up and how can I respond best? And so it's very, very powerful, I think, right? It's a different, how can I be with this with love? What would love do? Yeah. Yeah.
I actually had something to add.
Oh, no, you're stretching. Okay, good. Everyone stretch, please. Yeah. Yeah. Did you have something?
Yes, I
Steve?
did. But I
Yeah.
want to say thank you so much, Alexis, because that's exactly what I was going to say. Not what she said, but on the same topic.
Yeah.
And what I was doing with everything going on, I went to the teachings and I was just bearing witness just to everything. And I just think that aligns so much with the compassion piece and not empathizing with somebody, because I realized that I need to meet other beings where they were,
Yeah.
irregardless of how and all that little nuanced stuff. I was bearing witness.
Yeah.
That's one thing I wanted to mention. And then also I went to the teachings of, if I get her name right, Aya Santa Chita, right?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
She taught us on retreat that we live in the earth and not on the earth,
Mm.
because we're within the atmosphere and the
Mm.
earth knows how to survive. It always has, and it always will. So I just wanted to offer that to everybody here today, that no matter what happens, the earth has survived through so much. And we are part of the earth. We're not living on it, we're living in it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we are
thank
of
you.
the earth. That's very resourcing, that connection, the truth of that. Do you guys relate? Did that resonate for you, what he was saying? Beautiful. These are all really beautiful. Oh, there's a hand online. Thank you.
Hi, um, this is Bala.
Hi there.
Hello. I actually live in Ojai, but Santa Monica was my community, and it still is my community. I come there quite a bit. I was there for New Year's with Insight.
Mm.
So it's been heartbreaking to um, listen to all of this, and um, so it's been so healing to participate in today's session, to see the place, to see all of you in even in the Zoom windows, and also listen to topics about regulating ourselves, compassion, and also hearing about what are the ways to help. So I definitely would like to come down there and participate in the healing process. And I feel like this is the first step in that. So thank you for that.
Beautiful. Thank you. It's good to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Was there another question online or in the room? Was there an in-room question? Yeah. Let's go in room and then we'll go. I see there's another hand online. Yeah. Thank you. Hold on. Hold on. We want to hear from you. Go ahead. Yes.
Thanks. Hi,
please.
I'm Sarah. This is actually my first time here, so thank you
Oh,
for
welcome,
welcoming and I
Sarah.
like my group and everything. My question, I'm newer to this practice, but it's this time has really led me to think about attachment and
Mm.
attachment to
Yeah.
yes, material things. And I think in theory, I'm working on that.
Yeah.
But this was it was like pushed it to the limit. And specifically, I read an article about artists,
Mm.
people whose life work was burned. They're not just the tangible things
Oh,
they
yes.
bought, but their creative pieces of art. So their paintings, their pieces of writing. There was a musician, all his sheet music, so
Yeah, it's really.
I would love some
Mm,
guidance on seeing those things as
mm,
uh, things to become to detach or from,
yeah.
to be okay with those. And not just that, but people's homes. It's not the material possessions we I so associate with trying to detach from, right?
But
And yes, I
works
understand
of art,
impermanence,
beautiful
but
works
your
of art.
life's work of creation. So
Oh, thank you. Does everyone feel that? And it's our practice really does ask us to be with that too. And that the love, for all that's been lost for everyone, I can't imagine the grief. And yeah, I think there's a different tone to that than just, right? So precious, such a gift too. And where my heart goes is that this artist be able to come from this place and continue to create from a profoundly wise and loving place as best as possible. It's just tragic. I think we could cry. That would be appropriate. One last question.
It's not so much a question, but it's not so much a question. It's more about my nephew, who's a fireman and
Oh,
from San
wow.
Jose, and they all came down with their big rigs, and they're fighting in the
Unbelievable.
Eden Fire. And I've seen many of the photos. The work that they're
Amazing.
doing is they're on the side of a hill cutting brush
Unbelievable.
in the heat and in the fire for 40 hours straight.
Unbelievable.
So I just was hoping that our loving kindness could include
Yeah.
all of these people who are giving their lives for this.
I know.
And while we may be sad about loss of home, which is a horrible thing to have happen.
But so many lives are on the line.
So many people are giving their lives to fight these fires.
Unbelievable.
And I think I want to give as much compassion out and energy to them.
Doesn't your heart just go when she talks about all of the first responders in fire and all of them coming from other countries? Have you seen all that? Thank you for that. I want to leave you with a poem that I think is so simple and beautiful in the spirit of regulating. And this is from a book of the first free Buddhist women. Beautiful. These date back to the Buddha. These are poems of enlightenment. This is called Calm. How do you cross the flood? I'll start to cry. You cross calmly, one step at a time, feeling the stones. How do you cross the flood, my heart? You cross calmly, one step at a time, or not at all. May you take it one step at a time, and may you feel for those stones, and may you keep your heart open. All right. Much love to all of you. I will see you soon.